Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining lecture number 8 for our game design and game development course from Graz University of Technology. I just noticed that, of course, the title and the announcements are all wrong, so should be fine now. Thank you so much for joining another lecture. So today we have a topic which I find will be super important for you right after your first game prototype. Because if you look a little bit closer on our schedule, I'll just quickly put our schedule there. There we go. So course is GDD. So it's getting started. So by now, every one of you have already developed your first small little game. And we are in the middle of creating very, very interesting own games. So I can't wait to finally play the prototypes of your games. And your first prototype will be actually due to quite soon, which means other groups will play your games and provide you with feedback. This means they need to test your games. This is while, especially also like over the Christmas break, maybe a good time to play each other games and give valuable feedback. And today we start actually talking about how testing in games works, what different things you can are there which you can consider, and it's very likely that we won't finish today with the testing session, but we'll continue with that in the next session as well. Just as a little bit of a spoiler. Okay, good. But before we start, again, every day the same, every course, every lecture the same intro. So we're having our lectures right now on Twitch. If you want to talk about the course content, or share about your own game ideas or your projects, feel free to do so on Twitter or on. I have not tried to look at TikTok yet. If there happens to be game dev content from Theo Game Dev on TikTok, this could be extra points. This could be interesting. So if anyone wants to use TikTok and uses the hashtag TheoGameDev, I would be very interesting to see what you come up with. Because this is honestly like a very, very good way to market your games these days. Because on Twitter you can get in touch with a lot of game developers, but on TikTok it's crazy because you can really reach a lot of actual players of your game. So yeah, maybe someone wants to do something on TikTok. If you do that, please really inform us on Discord. I would love to see how this is working out. Okay. And all the course details can be found. So for everyone who is new to this course, or just like stopping by on Twitch, on Game Lab Graz, if you go to course and then GDD1, there you can also see all the slides and so on and so forth. Good. Okay, we had a homework. So, dear chat, please remind me, what was the homework from last week? You were supposed to play a game? Yes. Every day the same dream. Yes, thank you so much. So, who in the chat played Every Day the Same Dream? Yes, one. No. Half of you. No? Oh no, so much work. Would it help if we skip the discussion today and talk about the game next week? So who would be for extending that assignment until next week. So there should be a lot of ones now in the chat. Yes, okay, this was like a fast reaction. Okay, homework, extend that. Okay, good. So we'll talk about Every Day the Same Dream next week then. Because it's an interesting game and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And again, this is something which is very achievable, also as small teams, also as indie or solo dev. So I would love to hear your thoughts here. Okay, I'll skip those. Good, then we'll jump directly into today's course topic. Good, so we have different forms of testing. So who in this class or who in the chat actually did already test at some point games? Not a lot, no. So there are different forms of testing. Just in general, there are, so you tested the games I made. That's good enough. But actually, especially if you think of the big companies, there's something which is like called the beta testers. These are where like really thousands, sometimes like really a lot of users invited to test the game. Just think of a game like Diablo. This is something which is like really server heavy. So there are so-called beta tests, which means you are inviting thousands of users who are usually not paid, but have the honor of being able to play or beta test the game. And this is often used for stress testing, to find like bugs which have been overlooked in the past. Again, stress testing to really see if the server will survive maybe, I don't know how many players, but really stress test, see how the server reacts on like a huge user amounts. This is why also beta testing phases are sometimes like on specific days and times. So I can remember, I think I've only been to one beta testing program about Elder Scrolls Online. I don't know if anyone of you knows that one or played that one, but I can remember it was really, I'm super excited to be part of that. But the times were only like small windows, a couple of hours maybe, because they wanted to have as many people as possible on the servers to see whether or not it would work. Or did not work really well back then. I'm pretty sure it works better now. But this is beta testing. That's not really what we're gonna do and talk about when we talk about testing in game development, which is still closer in the development phase. So everything we talk about will be way before beta testing, let's put it that way. And there are different forms of testing. Sorry, I just take off the headphones. Just noticed I don't think I need them right now. Okay, so there are different forms of testing. So for me, it's just important that you know a couple of wordings which might be relevant when you want to set up tests, when you ask to prepare a task for someone else, when you see a job offer and they're looking for the people, and so we'll start with a few wordings. So, for instance, the wording focus group. This is a term that is often, it's usually a session where you invite potential players who are actually eventually part of your let's say target group, and you have them play your game. Let's say you invite 10 people as part of your focus group. They are sort of in the target group, and then you invite them to play the game, let's say for an hour or so. And after this 1 hour, you'll meet them in a seminar room, and it's sort of an interview discussion like atmosphere. So everyone speaks out and talks about their experience, what they did like, what they did not like about the game, and it's a discussion more than an actual interview actually. They're often really useful because it's sort of sort of brings people to talk out loud, because in a sort of a discussion framework, different to a one-on-one interview, it's a little bit easier to eventually point out things which you maybe did not like so much about the games. You eventually get insights like from others, which inspire you to also think about different parts of the game, give other sort of feedback, and so on and so forth. So this is a little bit the idea of focus groups. In indie dev settings, so in professional settings, this is often you're invited as a tester. You get a specific amount of money. Let's say you get 50 euros for sitting there for those 2 or 3 hours, giving feedback. It's a nice setting. Sometimes they book hotel rooms hotel seminar rooms. There's sort of a neutral atmosphere. There's always a little bit more neutral if you go directly to a games company. Sometimes it's directly in the games company, which is often a little bit more difficult, because if you go directly for a testing session into the games company, and all the developers out there like, oh god, what they're saying, are they smiling, how they're looking like. So sometimes it's a little bit easier to make it neutral. That's why it's also like sometimes organized by agencies who are organizing those forms of testing, that the developers themselves are not directly involved. So this is just like a little bit this is you just need to think of, hey, the project you're currently developing on, it's a lot of effort, it's your idea, it's your baby, and then someone comes in and they're just like tearing it apart, and this is something which can be a little bit hurtful. Shouldn't be, because in the end it's about making the best game, because you want to earn money with the game, you want to become like known, you want to found a company, you want to pay your employees with that game, with the money out of the game, and of course therefore you need people to eventually like it and play it. That's why it's really, really important to get outside feedback. QA testing. This is a term which you might have heard already quite often in the past. QA means quality assurance. So this is something which is not really about finding out how enjoyable a game is, but it's about looking for bugs, about potential errors, about potential legal issues, certification issues, and so on and so forth. And then there's usability testing. Usability testing is everything about to find out if the interface works nicely, if everything is intuitive, if it's easy to use, if you can improve somewhere in terms of usability. And it's always important that your games are fun, but the most fun game won't be so much fun anymore if everything is super cumbersome in the game. So for instance, if you think of a game like Pokemon, and you're about to catch a Pokemon, and it's quite easy if you don't want to immediately name the Pokemon and have it part of your party and everything. You can just quick this very easily by pressing 1 or 2 buttons. So just imagine you would have to confirm all the time again, no, I don't want to name it now, because you're doing this like so often. And like those forms, you want to really enhance the usability and speed and intuition. Then playtesting. Playtesting is often a part of other testing forms. There's really the idea that you get people to play the game. You ask them, how is the experience? Everything is about like trying to find out, is it enjoyable? What is the experience with the game? And this is like an essential part of different testing forms. Actually there's more. We have things like functionality testing. So this is like a phrase for to find out whether or not the game sort of works, so that you can actually play the game. Compliance testing. So this is what I mentioned before. This is like certification. We talked in one of the lectures that, for instance, if you want to publish for Sony or for Nintendo or Microsoft, they will come with a guidelines how specific error messages should look like. And compliance testing is really that those strict technical requirements are all fulfilled. Like for instance, Sony has this technical requirement checklist, the TRC. Microsoft has this. Oops, sorry, I'm jumping a little bit. Xbox, they have their own ADR and so on and so forth. Then there is localization testing. This is something just as a hint. If you think, what do you think is the problem if you compare, or could be a problem if you compare the English language with the German language? So just imagine you made a game and every text was in English, and then you just have someone translate me all the text in English, and you just put it into a game without having a closer look at the German version of the game. What do you think could be potential problems? The length of the sentences are not fitting the boxes anymore. Exactly. So this can be like a huge issue, because the German language is, I think, in average 30% longer compared to the English language. This means it's very likely that you have overlappings. And just think of the menu items. If you think of settings, I'll just try to type this, versus Einstellungen. Oh, okay, I wanted to have it like settings, Einstellungen. Yeah. Okay, now you can see it. Okay, just imagine, you had this like one little box, and all of a sudden, it's very likely that you have an overlap. Special characters, absolutely, this can be also a huge issue, like so what if you did use the wrong font and so on and so forth. And the context, absolutely. I'm just imagining, like, if you think of a huge game and you have a long story, it might be even likely that several translators are working on this text. So usually you send them, here is the Excel sheet, on the left side you have the original things, please translate me those things. So if they send it back, and there are eventually even more, several translators, and then you get it back, and there is no context in the game anymore. And sometimes, for instance, put this into the port A. And then, so you might think, okay, port might be where you need to put your controller into. This is like what we might think of. And then you have a translator who says, okay, du musst das in den Hafen bringen. You have to bring it to the Haber. And something like this. Leave me alone. Bleib alleine. Yeah, so, and then, also, like, translators might have different understandings, might have different words, because for one word there might be several translations. You want to have consistency, and again you want to have the context within the game. So just looking at localization testing, there's like a huge potential things on errors. So you need translation, but then you need also testing for the translation, for the localization. Yeah, well, okay. Then we have different roles. We already talked about producers, just as a little bit of a reminder. The producer, of course, is also relevant if you think about testing. So the game producer would set testing deadlines in coordination with actually the development before, or which is actually best case, testing always happens already next to development. Coordinates testing deadlines, coordinates with marketing and quality assurance, and then you have different forms of testers, like a lead, test lead, a lead tester, a QA lead. Those are persons who are actually responsible for like coordinating the bug list, for instance, then setting up who is testing what, because I mean, a huge game, you cannot test everything, right? It's like there are some games which are like 80 hours, and like testing doesn't mean that you play the game once and then you're all done. It really means that you look super close at specific parts of the game. So for instance, if you as a tester get the job that you need to test this open story game, then you need to test everything which is, for instance, within this region in this week. So this might be a little bit of a coordination. Yeah. And the test lead or QA lead and so on and so forth, they will work closely with the management and try to summarize and everything, sort of make a little bit of a protocol and so on and so forth. Then the testers, those are the ones who are actually testing if the game works, how the game works, is it easy to use, does it make sense, contains it, is it fun, other language areas, reporting bugs. So not only testing, but it's also about how you report bugs. We'll talk about this later. And that it's good description, that you can reproduce it. And yeah. Then there are also development engineers in test. So this is like, there's a lot of tech actually involved in testing. You can run automatic tests. You can write small tools, for instance, that for every new screen, there should be a screenshot to make the work for the testers a little bit easier, to build automatic test cases and so on and so forth. So there is also a software development side for testing. Yeah. Not all game studios have all roles. The big studios have many of those roles. Again, and what we said before, this is also often done by actually directly the publishers. This is something which is often at the publisher's end. Okay, so this is actually the slide I was looking for before. So we already started with that one. So we talked about functionality testing, compliance testing, compatibility testing, and localization testing. We already talked about beta testing. So this is the public betas. They're really effective because thousands of fans, so it's usually an invite-only chance, might find bugs and issues the developers do not find, and it's a stress test. Regression testing is performed once a bug has been fixed by the programmers, and the QA checks to see whether that bug is still there or it has been actually fixed. Load testing tests the limits of a system, such as the number of players in an online game on an MMO server and so on and so forth, or the number of sprites active in the scene, number of threads running in a particular program. This can be either done with a large group of testers, or sometimes it's they're using a software which is emulating heavy activity. Multiplayer testing, so this should be on the next line, should involve separate multiplayer QA teams in the game, if the game has a significant multiplayer portion. This is also, of course, all the LAN internet connection testing, if everything is working, and so on and so forth. Mobile game testing, this is mainly done manually or is automatic during development. So for mobile game testing, it's also not unusual that you're working with emulators. So for instance, something which is what do you think? Okay, let me ask this actually. What do you think can be a huge issue when you deploy a game for a mobile phone, for instance? Multiple resolutions, different dream sizes, yes. Oh, phone is not powerful enough, yes, it can also be. If you think, especially Android, I mean for iPhone it's a little bit easier because you have the different iPhone's versions, but if you think of Android, you have many different Android versions, and you have so many different phones running Android. So many different phones, and all of them have different screen sizes, so resolutions, power, and so on and so forth. So you can run into so many different problems with all those different devices. So you cannot have, no matter how wealthy your game company will be, you cannot have all Android devices just there, because it's just not reasonable. That's why we use emulators quite heavily, where you can say, okay, you want to test the game in those different phones, and it's just like one click on the PC. Okay, so a typical testing then looks like that you test the game, that you try to identify a bug, but what happens if you find the bug? You write a bug report, which goes then to the development team. A nice way, which I can really, really, really recommend to everyone who is currently working on their projects. I am pretty sure that most of you are using something like GitHub or GitLab. And with GitLab, you have already a very nice issue tracking possibility. So I would suggest that you try this if this works for you, and actually try to use this a little bit for your bug tracking idea. And yeah, I just answered very quickly a question in the chat. Do the emulators really work for all devices 100%? No. But it's as good as it gets. There are like a lot of official emulators out there which support really a wide range of mobile phones. If your game eventually uses super fancy specific features, which might be not covered, this might be another issue. But it's like the best chance you get to really cover a lot of devices. Okay, so you found a bug. What you do now is write a bug report. So I can really, really recommend, if you're working with GitHub or GitLab, that you use the issue functionality in GitHub, issue tracking. Because it's a nice workflow. And also if it doesn't seem super necessary because you're a small team and it's a small project, the earlier you get used to working with subversion systems, with bug tracking, and with having some sort of a process, the easier it will get later for you to actually apply it also when it's really necessary. So I would really try to motivate you to do that. Another super famous bug tracking software is Jira. And feel free now to also add a little bit your experiences with bug tracking tools. There are plenty out there in the chat. But Jira and also the GitLab ones are the other ones which I can recommend. Good. So if you write a bug, you would have different parts. So usually you would have a little bit of a summary line. So this could be like if you have your studio and you have a specific, you should describe actually how this bug report look like in one or two or more demo reports, so that you sort of really have, hey, this is how it should look like. Okay, I'm gonna do this now here together with you. How could such a bug report for the bug you see down there look like? Okay, so first thing, it should be a summary line. Okay, then I have the actual results, then the expected results, steps to replicate, and then how severe the bugs are. Before we'll do that, we'll do this together as a little bit of example. Just I give you a idea about the severity. You can have different forms. You can have 1, 2, 3. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can have A, B, C. This is just one suggestion. A would be critical bugs that prevent the game from being shipped. So it might even crash the game. So those are really game changers. If there is an A bug in the game, you cannot ship that game. B are essential problems, which really require the attention. The game might be still playable though. There are super severe, and it's very unlikely that the game will be shipped if there are still B bugs. But it doesn't mean the game will crash and all players will hate the company forever because they have the blue screen of death, something like that. C bugs are smaller, more obscure problems. Sometimes need more recommendations than bugs. Okay. Good. So, if you look at this one, let's start with a summary line. A summary line should be a short, sweet summary of the problem. Yeah, let's not talk about bugs and crashing consoles. Okay, let's try look at this problem and now try to put together a small summary of that problem. So what could this be? And what do you think? Is this a bug? Is this a B bug? Is this a C bug? Let me rephrase. What is a little bit the problem here? Icons not... There's... maybe it's too small in the stream. I'll try to resize this a little bit for you. Is it more visible now? Okay, good. So what do you think is the problem here? Yes, user interface overlaps. UI on the text overlaps. So you have kills with deaths, but this is a little bit difficult to see. So you have severe overlaps. Impact hammer, those are probably like the weapon names. There are overlaps. So what do we say summary line? Should we just say text overlap? Sweet and concise. We could say that let's move on. Text overlap summary line. Short, sweet summation of the problem. Sorry. Okay. Then for the second one, what should the actual result? What is the actual result? A description of what happened, the problem. So the actual result when entering the I suppose this is like a final screen. Move the notepad window a little lower. Yes, sure, sorry. Oh, oops, sorry. Yes, I see. Okay. So actual result when entering the when finishing. I'm just making things up. I have no idea what we're looking at. But it looks like the final screen after a match. When finishing a match, at the statistics overview, there are overlappings in the table, whatever. Okay, the table might have a name. The player stats are not readable because columns, rows are overlapping and not aligned. Oh, that's also good. This can be something which is more detailed. Absolutely, you can write longer text here. Are not readable because columns, rows are overlapping. Okay, expected result. This means how should it look like? What did you expect? What you thought should happen instead of seeing this problem? It's, I think, a little bit simpler here. Expected results. Yeah, no overlaps. Text should be readable. Text should be readable. Easy. Okay, steps to replicate. So this is now interesting. So how someone else can actually find this problem. So in that case, it's we have to make up something. So finish a PvP match. I'm just making up things now. Okay, I don't know when this happened. Finish a PvP match. So if in case this happens really for every single PvP match. Ciao. Just if it's getting more detailed, like let's say you're playing a driving game, and then there's a tree, and you crash into the tree, but you're not actually crashing, but for instance the tree is disappearing, and this does not happen all the time. This happens like 1 out of 5 times, and it's only happening if you're driving a specific car. You want to have all those details there. Or if the player name is too long, yes. So for instance, if the player name is really long, then this might happen. Or if a specific text size was used. For instance, if you did change the settings and you set the finish a PV setting change to text size 12, for instance. So that the developers really know, or anyone who wants to replicate that error, that they can find the bug easily. Okay, and now what do you think is the severity for that one? If you look back, A, B, C. C, this would be super cosmetic. What you would ship? Everyone, you would ship that game? C would be shippable. C? Okay, so I can already see the your standards are really low. I don't want to play a game where I don't even can see my results every single time I play a match. This is at least a B plus. So you can't ship a game when there's severe overlaps. No, please don't. It's still playable. No. Wrong standards, everyone. This is at least a B, maybe a A bug. Okay. No. That's not the sort of game development we are educating here. So we want to ship games only if they look nice, and if we think they are bug free. So please don't ship this game. Okay, let's say B plus. Okay, and what I'm doing now, this should be like really dependent on what you're doing. So the summary line, this is something which could be specific to your standards, how you want your summaries look like. So I would say, okay, this is a B plus bug. Maybe you want to have a specific bug type. I say this is a UI or like a translation or whatever bug. So B plus, UI, and text overlap, a little bit closer description, text overlap in match summary screen. There we go. Let's just call it the B bug. B bug, then we defined maybe within our company a sort of different various bugs that immediately, like there's a huge difference. If there's a UI bug, if you found a bug in the UI or within a gameplay, they might send it to entirely different people and subgroups within the studio. Okay, is this clear? I'll make this a little bit bigger now. that when we have the video that it can be very easily readable. Okay. So this is something how such a bug description can look like. Okay. And this is like, again, okay, maybe top is cut off. Top is cut off, really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And we in our course we have very high standards. We won't ship that game. Okay? Agree, everyone? This should be like full of ones and super happy standards for everyone who finished that course. So everyone who will go into industry and will ship me a game with one of those bugs, I will find you. Okay. No. Strict rules. Okay, so how does it look like? So there are different forms of testing. So you can work directly as part of the company as a game tester. And something which I really want to point out, I mean, testing games is as important as programming games. So this is something which is like super important and a valuable idea. Yeah, okay, Theo programmers do not produce bugs. Thank you for saying that, coding Theo. This is, yeah. Okay. So again, this is I will come for you if you produce a bug like that and then say, no, we learned that this is fully okay and fully shippable. No, it is not. High quality standards coming out of this course. Okay, no spoilers. Okay, so there are different forms of testing. So if you can be directly part of the company, fully employed by the company, working as a professional tester. You're part of the game dev team as an artist, as a programmer, as a designer. So this is as well valuable. You can work as a tester. You can write testing tools and so forth, and so and so on. And you have a really strong impact on the game. But then there are also other ways how you can contribute. And by the way, just as a like side note, getting into the games industry, it's still a good way to get to know a company, to start maybe your path in the games industry while working as a tester, for instance, as part of the industry, because you learn about the processes, you learn the teams, and so this is something which is like an easier step often into the games industry. Good. So then there are other ways how testing works. So something which is becoming more and more popular, something where I'm also very interested in, is something which is called games user research. This is a relatively it's not new, but it's not as known as traditional testing yet. But games user research means really that people coming from a psychology background, maybe data analytics background, are joining game teams in order to understand better the motivations from the game players, from the users. I find it like super interesting, super fun. What are we doing? For instance, we do a lot of data analytics. We want to use player data to understand the players better. So this is a little bit all games user research. This also means, you want to get to know your players better. And I'll just show you a little bit how a setup or how the ideas around that look like. So those are pictures I took at Sony London studio. So they have a lovely studio set up directly in the center of London. Thank you, Sony London, for that I can use the pictures. And when I was there, they showed a little bit like their setup. So when they want to find out more about how players are actually playing the games, then they invite people, players, so not people who are actually part of the company, but people from outside to test the games. This is how one of those rooms look like. So for instance, if you play like a typical living room game, like for instance a split screen driving game or a party game, you want to have like a nice couch atmosphere, which reminds a little bit like home. You sit on the couch, play with the console, and yeah, this is a little bit how the room looks like. Is there anything any one of you notices? Something which is a little bit awkward, a little bit off. So you have here the screen, there's a Connect, here you have the Sony's. I don't know if this is a Connect. I don't know how the PlayStation variant of this looks like. You have the sofas, it looks a little bit like a living room. But something is off. Oh yes. But why there is a mirror next to in this room, such a giant mirror. And yes, it's a double-sided mirror. So this is how the other side looks like. So here the test observance would look look at what's happening on the other side. So you have, of course, a couple of cameras. You can see here, you can see the game. Here you can see again the camera. You can see the camera and the game, so that you always have as much as possible visible. And you can directly observe what the people are doing and eventually change things and so on and so forth. So it's quite interesting. So if you're not there for, let's say you're there for a single player game and you want to play that game you get invited for a tested game for 1 week. So you're being paid to go there every day, play for 8 hours. And this is a little bit like how the station look like. So you sit there, here's your console, you have your microphone, your headset, you have a camera from up front. And yeah, this is like your workspace, your testing space for a week. And it's not only you, it's many of you. So if you look like player research, you find like very interesting pictures where you can see like how like really dozens of players are sitting like this next to each other. And yeah, what do you notice on this picture? Yes, there are cameras on top of every place. We saw already earlier there's cameras from the front, there's cameras from the top. And now I show you what is here. I mean, you can not really see it, but here on that side, there happens to be a mirror. And on that mirror, this is like how it looks like. This picture is not ideal, I gotta tell you that. Was a little bit, wonky. But you can again see through, and you see for every screen what is happening actually on that screen. You can discuss immediately if there are weird things happening. And then there's another weird thing eventually. Do you notice something else on that picture? No? I'll give you a hint. If you look closer here, what do you think this picture is? The pause room. Yes. Yes. This is like where then the players get their free lunch, the pizzas. And what do you think is happening here, and why this is being recorded? Absolutely, absolutely. So they're like playing all day, all week, constantly in front of their PC. They do not eventually know the other testers. So once there's a break, what will you most likely talk about? So they will very likely talk about the game itself. So this is there might be the evaluators in there talking, and yeah. So this is where the most interesting conversations happen. Good. So just as a little bit as a hint, again, also as an indie dev, also as a small studio, or you as students, you can reproduce such settings really nicely at your home. It's not necessary to have like a super fancy setup. We'll talk about these setups in the next lecture probably. But the idea is that you really can invite people to test your game, and outside of lockdowns, outside of corona, it's really nice, for instance, if you have a good game and it's really ready to test, that you tell invite friends, invite people to bring friends, and give them pizza. Just tell them, okay, let's have a nice pizza evening, and it would be lovely if we take 1 hour and so on, about my game, and then you can really have sort of like a playing party or so on and so on. The testers usually do know how the environment is. Yeah. And how does such a typical structure look like? Again, this is strongly dependent on what game is being played. How long is your game? What type of game is it? Is it a multiplayer game? Is this thing? So these are like very, very, very unsecure settings. But just to give you one idea how such a typical testing setup looks like. So you invite someone over to test the game. Then you introduce a little bit. Hello, the idea is that we test the game. Eventually, it's not the best idea that you say, this is the game I've been developing on my own for the last 10 years. This is the proudest thing I ever worked on. Please give me honest feedback. No, this is something which is really the idea that you make it as neutral as possible. And like the worst thing that can happen, that you as a game developer, and again, I test games so often, and this happens to me really, really often, that if I give feedback how the game is improved, that the developers get angry at me, because it's, of course, I try to give honest feedback, because I honestly want the games to be successful and to improve. That's why I give honest feedback, what could be improved. But if someone is like, hey, I'm just showing you the game, that you tell me all the good things about my game, this is not how I could help, right? So as a developer, I always keep in mind, if they tell you or critique your game and tell you things that could be improved, that they're not so nice, this is like the best feedback you can get, because then you can still improve something. If they don't, if they lie to you and say, yeah, that's a nice game, and the reality is that it has some flaws, doesn't help anyone. Okay, good. So you would start introducing the game. Often it's also nice if it's a neutral person, not directly like the main developer of the game, and maybe someone or who can be a little bit more neutral. Tell a little bit like about the goal, that not the player is tested, but the game is tested. Because this is also something which is sometimes really frustrating. If someone does not understand how your game works, and all of a sudden the developer gets angry and tells you, you're too stupid, you don't understand how my game works. No, it's very often that the game failed in the onboarding or tutorial to teach how the game is supposed to be played. So it's important to clarify, not the player is tested, but the game. Then you have a little bit of a warm-up discussion. What we often do is, for instance, we want to learn more about the player. What do they usually like to play? Ask a little bit of the demographics, because of course if I make a VR multiplayer shooter and I have in front of me someone who loves to play mobile casual games, it might have an impact on the results, if especially my target group are multiplayer VR shooter people. And so this is something which you want to learn either with a questionnaire or a little bit of a discussion at the beginning. What you should not do is already talk about specifics about the game, because you don't want to have spoilers, you don't want them to have any other experience which a player who just downloads the game from the store might not have. Then you have a play session. Really depends strongly on the length of the game. And this is just a little bit like a first idea that you get to know the game itself, and you want to eventually learn if the first half an hour of the game is nice, if everything is understood. And after 20 minutes, one good tip is that you don't break, like that you don't say, oh, thank you for testing now for 20 minutes, we are finished. What do you think would be a better question to ask after 20 minutes? That's a tough question, but maybe someone. How was it? Yes, this is actually like the super. Do you want to keep playing? Yes, 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 yes. So first thing, oh yes. First thing, do you want to continue playing? Because that way, if they're like super excited and say, oh yes, 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 and you already have an idea, oh they might like my game. If they say, oh thank you, I'm good for now, it might be already a first hint. And secondly, very right, an open question. How was it? This is like the best open question ever. So first you start, do you want to like to continue? Just to get a little bit of mood, and then you say, if they say yes, you can let them play another 5 minutes or so, and then immediately ask, how was it? An open question where they can just talk. So don't ask, what did you like, what did you not like, because this immediately makes them think about like concrete, make them think about concrete things. If you keep it very open, how was it? Then you get a ton of interesting answers. And then you can ask details about what did they like, think about different strategies. For instance, if you have a tutorial, did you learn everything about the tutorial? You can ask them questions like, hey, what do you think the story is about? So you can really ask questions which are very specific for your game. There are questionnaires which do help you, but in reality, you'll get very very fast to the point that you know what is important for your game. For instance, hey, maybe the controls are a little bit difficult for your game. Maybe you can focus the questions on that. Yes, okay, apparently I have slides for every point I just said. So, okay, just to summarize, introduction, introduce yourself and the setup, not you're tested, the game is tested, it's still in development. Warmer questions could be, tell me some of the games you play, what games do you usually like, where do you buy games, what was the last game you purchased. Typical structures: leave the playtesters alone in a room, watch them play from behind one-way glass or on a video feed if you have a setup, a camera. Stay in the room, watch quietly from behind. In either case, it's important to ask your players to think out loud eventually. So this is something which works really nicely, that while they are playing, either you ask them afterwards a really detailed question, or you can also do something which is called think out loud testing, where you encourage players to constantly talk about what they're currently doing. This comes with benefits because you always know, player, oh, I'm driving, I'm trying to pick a color now, but I'm not entirely sure where to find this color. So you have this detailed, like what is happening right now in the mind of the player. You sometimes have to encourage them, because at some point they might get too immersed again and forget about thinking out loud or like talking out loud. And you have to encourage them. Comes with the disadvantage that they are not as immersed in the game as they would be in a natural setting. One way to counteract this is a retrospect TA, think out loud test. This means that you just record like their play sessions. So you want everything what they did on screen, and maybe also a little bit like their reaction. So this is like you know from the Kathy Andrews course HCI, where you have, for instance, a mirror, and that you have both the screen and the face of the person at one setup. Nowadays you can make it easy with this camera, with a camera on the one hand, and like I'm doing right now, I'm working with OBS, so I have my screen share and I have my face, and this could be set up really nicely also for a testing session. And then afterwards, so don't ask them to think out loud, and then rewatch everything together with that person and ask them to then think out loud, in retrospect, think out loud what they did. Yeah. Discussion of the game experience, overall thoughts. What were their thoughts about the gameplay? Were you able to learn to play the game quickly? What are the objectives? And so on and so forth. Was there anything confusing? And then typical questions you might be interested in general. Are there any difference, like for the target groups, for the children, for who are the different game players? Do they understand the play? Do they want to continue playing? Are they bored sometimes? Are the levels difficult? Are there specific strategies which you observed when working with a lot of people? Is a specific puzzle too fun? Too fun? Yes, too difficult. Is what is super fun? What is not so much fun? Is something too long? Is a quest too long? Is a quest too complicated? And so on and so forth. Or again, this idea about the story. Let them explain your game in one story. And yeah, well, so the next game discussion homework we did change. So you get the extensions for every day is the same dream. Every day the same dream. I'll put, there we go. Put the link into the chat. Do you have any questions? If not, thank you so much. I will quickly jump into Discord if someone else has any questions on Discord. And yeah, looking forward to next week, hopefully with a discussion about every day the same dream. And have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining the 8th lecture on game design development on testing, and we will probably continue with a little bit more testing details next stream. Good night. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Oh, I will rate you. I will send you through a raid to a game development stream. Let me just quickly see which one. Okay, there we go. Toast Spender, Unity Tech. Unity Tech. Can I rate Unity Tech? Unity Tech. I'll send you to Unity Tech. Have fun. What are they doing at Unity Tech? Asset Store Showcase. Okay. Claxels. Yeah, good enough. Bye.